Netflix stock took a major nosedive this year with Elon Musk calling on people to cancel their subscriptions over the platform pushing LGBT agenda to kids. Well, it turns out that was just the tip of the iceberg, and Elon Musk might have bitten onto something. New data shows that 41% of the content targeting kids contains LGBTQ characters, themes, and/or messaging. Now, here to talk over all of this with me is CBN's Billy Hallowell. Billy, the report from Concerned Women for America, it analyzed 326 series rated TVG, TVY, and TV7, and even 21% of Netflix's content rated TVY, which, by the way, is traditionally geared toward preschoolers, contained LGBTQ themes. So this is clearly a widespread issue across all of Netflix, but especially among all of their children's programming. So, what's your take on all of this new data?
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think parents have made it very, very clear on these issues where they stand. The challenge that we have is that a lot of people put their kids in front of a tablet, a phone, or their TV, and they go and do work. They do the things they have to do because people are busy, and they don't realize maybe that this is what is going on. If these numbers are true and accurate based on what this study is purporting, you have a situation where even if your goal is to say, oh, we're trying to reflect the population, we're trying to make people feel accepted, 41% is a percentage so high that it goes leaps and bounds beyond what you would even do if you felt that that was the right thing to do to try to balance things out. From a Christian perspective, this is obviously troubling because 4 in 10 of these titles, more than 4 in 10, have this sort of content in them. And so I think we have to kind of pull back and say, what in the world is going on here? And if parents are frustrated about this, making sure they voice that. As you mentioned, this was an issue earlier this year for Netflix. It's repeatedly been an issue. And, I don't know about you, but I don't want to put children in front of something that's going to add to any confusion in their lives, that's going to indoctrinate them in any way towards something that would be negative for them or counter a biblical worldview. So there's a lot here to unpack, but I think from a base level, deeply, deeply concerning numbers.
Well, I mean, and even when we're talking about close to a quarter of the content that's traditionally geared toward like preschool age kids, TVY content, this is not like Disney many years ago, even before our lifetimes, really, when you could sit or kind of at the end of our childhood going into us having kids now, is you could just at one point sit your kids down to watch a show, and if it was on Disney, it was probably fine, right? It was probably completely family friendly and would even support a lot of moral truths that as Christians we would agree with. But gone are those days, to your point, Billy. And Penny Nance, the president of CWA, she said the ratings system is actually a huge part of the problem. She said, in her opinion, it just doesn't work and needs to be completely overhauled because right now, networks and platforms like Netflix, they're rating themselves. So she described what's happening as insidious because they know what they're doing. They're couching all of this content in these shows, and then they're giving it a TVY rating or a TV7 rating because it is predominantly geared toward kids, and they were able to sneak this kind of stuff in. And I want to talk, Billy, specifically about 2023 because at the time, even Netflix, they acknowledged this as a point of pride. The company said it was a standout year because more than half of all of its new shows featured LGBT characters, and about 60%, so well over half, of all of its new kids' content at the time featured LGBT themes and characters. So, what do you make of the fact that this is not just something that's happening here and there, but it's something that seems like it's not a bug in the system, it is part of the system?
Yeah, this is the danger of isolating yourself in these silos where you only talk to people who believe and think the way that you do. Because when you do that, and Hollywood and media have a history of doing this, they present news and information and entertainment through a lens that is not where the rest of the country is. One of the things I believe that shifted the election in 2020 the way it did was this issue, was parents and people feeling like they couldn't be honest about their concerns over gender ideology. technology, over these sorts of issues being pushed on kids. This was a major, major fault line, I think, for the Democrats. And so you see this then now carrying over to Hollywood, where people are patting themselves on the back saying, look, look, look how accepting we are and how loving we are and how we're including all these things in our shows, not recognizing that the rest of the public is not on board with all of that. And even if the public was on board with all of it, what other explanation would you have after spending decades and decades of having this content be pushed in people's hearts and minds? And so I think we're in a really interesting time right now where companies like Netflix are finding themselves being pushed back upon. People are saying, no, 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 we don't like this. We don't want to see this. We actually don't want this in kids' content. You want to put it in your adult content, go ahead. But there's even people who don't want that, obviously. So I'm speaking from a strictly secular perspective here. From the Christian perspective, the answers are very clear here. And I just can't believe that people who are creating content for the masses, if these numbers are true, would do such a poor job of understanding and reading the audience.
Yeah, 100%. And, as you and I have both said so many times, whether it's on the Quick Start podcast or here on our YouTube channel, so much of this is rooted in a spiritual war. I mean, that's what scripture says. This is spiritual blindness. And I want to read a passage from Isaiah that's actually prophesying of the coming of Jesus. It's Isaiah 42:6 and 7. It says, I, the Lord, have called you to demonstrate my righteousness. I will take you by the hand and guard you. I will give you to my people Israel as a symbol of my covenant with them, and you will be a light to guide the nations. You will open the eyes of the blind. You will free the captives from prison, releasing those who sit in dark dungeons. And the reason that I brought that passage up, I know it kind of seems like out of left field, but I think it shows that Satan is working as hard as he can to confuse people and to keep them in darkness, to keep them in bondage, and especially to kids. It's like getting them so wrapped up in all of this from an early age. It's like, wow, it's going to take even longer to kind of unravel all of this indoctrination that you referred to at the beginning of our conversation. So I just want to get your final thoughts as we close out this conversation, Billy.
Well, I think this is where Christians need to step up and pray. I think we've done a lot of complaining, and rightfully so, about Hollywood and media and universities and education and all these things. Are we actually praying? Because right now there's a real opportunity where young people are stepping up to the plate, in particular, especially young men, and they're saying, look, we want to know more about faith. We're interested. I mean, there's all sorts of conversations. You just did a great story on Barron Trump and how he may be coming close to faith, according to one pastor. A lot of these young people are stepping up, but what needs to happen is intense prayer and really helping people understand the truth. When you have forced people into a corner by giving them inaccurate information on every front, you can expect nothing more than they're going to believe that inaccurate information. And so coming to faith can transform everything for us, but we need to be praying for people as that is happening, that they would come to an understanding of not just the faith more generally, but the order of how things are meant to be. And that order is often thwarted by this kind of content that we're seeing on Netflix and other places. So there's a lot of prayer and action that has to be really undertaken by Christians and others who have a deep care for these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you being here to break this one down, Billy.